Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're not just looking at a famous movie character. No, we're diving deep into a performance that literally altered the course of cinematic history. We're going to break down a brilliant life, a rapid rise to fame, and the very real and honestly often misunderstood story behind a modern legend's final years. So if you're fascinated by the dramatic, behind-the-scenes moments that truly shape the art of film, well, you are in the exact right place. Let's actually skip the traditional introduction and drop right into the middle of the action. The year is 2008. Now, before this moment, comic book movies were kind of just seen as light popcorn entertainment, right? You know, those colorful blockbusters meant for a fun summer weekend. But that year, the world witnessed a performance that completely shattered those expectations. It wasn't just a big box office hit. It was a cultural reset. It literally forced critics and film historians to look at the superhero genre with serious respect. A chaotic villain, a chilling laugh. Just hearing that description immediately conjures up this image of pure terror, doesn't it? But behind this incredibly dark character, who was completely buried under all that smeared makeup and those scars, was a real, deeply passionate actor who gave absolutely everything to his craft. The contrast between the man himself and the monster he created on screen is just profound. So we aren't just talking about a comic book villain today. We're exploring the dramatic, real-life history of a truly dedicated artist. Section 1. A risky beginning, Perth to Hollywood. To really understand the actor, we need to rewind the clock and see exactly where all this relentless creative energy came from. Born in Perth, Australia, back in 1979, Heath Ledger was a highly creative kid. He had this boundless energy, a huge love for storytelling, and, fun fact, a serious passion for chess. He actually won a state junior championship. But he was always drawn to the stage, and at just 17 years old, he made an incredibly risky decision. He completely dropped out of school, packed up his life, and drove clear across the country to Sydney just to chase a dream. He definitely didn't take the safe route. He jumped into the grueling audition circuit, landed early roles on Australian TV, and ultimately that huge risk paid off with his massive Hollywood breakthrough in the 1999 hit 10 Things I Hate About You. Section 2. Seeking serious roles. Beyond the teen heartthrob. Following that early breakout success, his career trajectory hit a pretty massive fork in the road. You know, a lot of actors would have just comfortably ridden that massive wave of early 2000s teen stardom, right? Just collecting easy paychecks for romantic comedies. But Ledger deliberately rejected the whole teen heartthrob label. He actually fought against his own agents in the studios because he demanded deeply challenging, serious roles that would really test his dramatic weight. And that sheer determination, it culminated in his brilliant restrained performance in Brokeback Mountain. That role completely shifted his critical standing, earned him immense respect from his peers, and even landed him an Academy Award nomination. He had officially cemented himself as one of the most respected dramatic actors of his generation. Section 3. Preparing for chaos, becoming the Joker. This relentless pursuit of complex characters brings us directly to director Christopher Nolan casting for The Dark Knight. Nolan didn't just need a traditional bad guy who robbed banks, He needed a living, breathing symbol of pure chaos. And when the casting was first announced, comic book purists were genuinely outraged. The internet totally lit up with fans who simply couldn't see the quiet, romantic star of Brokeback Mountain playing Gotham's greatest threat. But Ledger had a fiercely different plan. As they said, he wanted to become him. He didn't just want to throw on a purple suit and play a part. He wanted to entirely inhabit the character's fractured mind and prove absolutely every single skeptic wrong. And to achieve that astonishing level of psychological immersion, he took some pretty extreme measures. He actually locked himself in a London hotel room for weeks, entirely isolated from the outside world. While he was in there, he meticulously experimented with his pitch and cadence to craft that iconic voice, and of course, he developed that incredibly unsettling, hollow laugh. He even went as far as documenting his twisted thoughts in a personal Joker diary. This was a physical scrapbook filled with disturbing imagery, tragic news stories, and this chilling internal monologue. He was basically living right alongside the chaos of the character, even when the cameras weren't rolling. But his preparation didn't stop at just the script. He built this character layer by layer, pulling intense inspiration from a few really dark sources. First, he studied classic graphic novels like The Killing Joke to truly understand the character's terrifying origins. Then, he mixed that foundation with a raw, chaotic punk aesthetic, drawing heavily from icons like Sid Vicious. Finally, he studied the erratic body language of various fictional and historical characters of chaos. He wove all these elements together to make his version of the Joker feel uncomfortably, almost intensely real. And man, when he finally stepped onto that set, his commitment was so overwhelmingly powerful that it actually stunned veteran co-stars right into silence. He even famously instructed his fellow actors to physically hit him during fight scenes just to maintain that raw authenticity. It led to legendary moments like the interrogation room scene, where he presented a Joker that was calm, yet terrifying, controlled, yet completely chaotic. It was just an absolute masterclass in cinematic tension.
Section 4, A Tragic End, Personal Struggles. Now, as we examine the final months of his life, it is absolutely vital that we approach this history with immense respect and strict factual accuracy. Because over the years, there's been this really popular pop culture myth going around. People suggest that playing the Joker is what drove Ledger to madness. But as anyone studying the history of film knows, we have to clear away those rumors. There is absolutely no confirmed evidence that this role singularly caused his later personal struggles. In fact, cast and crew recount that he genuinely loved playing the character. He was often skateboarding around the set in full makeup, just making the crew laugh between takes.
The reality of the situation was a much more complex combination of very human factors. Ledger had been suffering from severe bouts of respiratory illness, and he openly discussed his crippling battles with insomnia, describing his mind as something that just simply would not stop spinning. Tragically, while he was pushing himself through the grueling filming of the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, while already exhausted and sick, he was just desperately trying to find a balance between getting some rest and maintaining his intense work ethic. And this ultimately culminated in a devastating accidental overdose of prescription medications. He passed away in January 2008. He was only 28 years old.
Section 5, An Unforgettable Legacy, Changing Cinema Forever. Despite this truly devastating loss to his family, his fans, and the global film industry, the immense body of work he left behind ensured that his name was going to echo through history. Fast forward a bit to the year 2009, when Heath Ledger was posthumously awarded the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. This was a monumental, totally unprecedented moment in cinematic history. I mean, never before had a comic book movie performance won an acting Oscar. The critics, the fans, his peers, they were all in absolute agreement. This was, and still is, widely recognized as one of the greatest acting feats in the entire history of cinema. He truly changed cinema forever. He completely redefined the boundaries of what a movie villain could be on screen, proving once and for all that genre films could hold profound dramatic weight. And he continues to inspire filmmakers and actors globally who still study his rigorous process today. But honestly, most importantly, he's remembered not just as a terrifying character painted on a screen, but as a deeply dedicated artist, a fiercely creative mind, and a storyteller who gave absolutely everything to the craft he loved. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Some performances are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. As you reflect on his tragically short life, but also his incredibly profound, everlasting impact on the art of film, what exactly do you think it is that makes a true legend outlast the very performance that created it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.